House to Home, brought to you by RE/MAX Diamond Realty.
All right, everybody, welcome to House to Home. Let's jump right into the subject because this is so important as most of you are getting ready to pay your taxes. We, of course, Liz Duenas and I from RE/MAX Diamond Realty. You did all the talking. I just sat here and asked the questions, and you certainly informed me. But, you know, of course, remember about maybe, what, a month ago, a month and a half ago, we were talking about the fact that Guam's real property taxes haven't been assessed in about 23 years. They finally did that.
That's right.
I understand you have some paperwork now, and the forms are being sent out.
Well, initially what they did is they sent out a form to fill out. They want to know what your EIN number and, you know, they want pertinent information regarding that particular piece of property, and you're supposed to turn that in. And they also gave you some information regarding the tax information on your property. And then just recently, we received the actual statement for payment, the invoice for payment. And they broke it down into two payments, or you could pay it all at one time. First payment is due April 20, and the second payment is due on May 20. Now, one of the things I spoke with some people about, some of the statements that they got are referencing taxes for a piece of land that supposedly has a house on it, and it doesn't. So what do they do at that point? So what they should do probably is take that document to Revenue Tax. I think they probably have a special division to handle that, where they can dispute that the taxes are improperly recorded because there's no building on it. Therefore, the land value should be less. Because just remember, there are two values: one for the structure and one for the land itself. So they would probably have to do a reevaluation of that value.
Now, most business people would say, okay, you've just said I can either make 2 installments or just one lump sum payment, right? Right. Is there any financial benefit to paying, like, is it like if you pay it all in one shot, it's less 10%, or is it pretty much like, no, if you want to pay it, it's 50-50?
It's pretty much the same. They just broke it down to help the consumer. Okay. Yeah.
Whatever you can afford.
Yes, exactly. But they, you know, if it's $500, $250 is due on the 20th of April, and the balance is due May 20th.
Okay, and now just to finally put some numbers and raw data to the theory that we applied before. I remember before you were saying, like, because we had no idea what the percentage increase was going to be, because it has been 23 years since Gov. did that. Your experts in your field were kind of like estimating maybe 35%, maybe a third and over. We've seen some rates have gone up by 60.
Yes, it was more than that. For some. But again, bear in mind, the prices are based on a breakdown of the structure and then the land itself. So yes, it was a bit more than what we anticipated. But again, we have had clients that have gone into dispute it. So, for example, if you have 2 pieces of property, one in Tumon and Tamuning, and one in Jotnya, of course, and you would dispute a Jotnya property if it was priced higher. Of course, the assessor just took an overall view of the area and probably did the assessment based on, I'm sure they stopped by the individual properties and did an inspection, but I'm not sure if they did it physically or if they did just a overview, like a Google overview with the lay of the land.
And then again, this may not include, like, if you own, say, like a home, if you've built an extension, if you've added a second floor, if you've done like stuff like that.
Right.
So in that case, filing a dispute would actually like be the smart thing to do.
Right. Now, I'm sure if someone had a lower value, they're probably not going to go in and dispute that.
Back in the 80s, we said, would you narc on yourself? That was the popular word we used back then.
That's right.
Then again, our hair was all like really big and, you know.
The Afro style, yeah.
Yeah. Not today.
The 70s, the peace movement.
There you go.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. Well, relatively speaking, Guam's property tax is still very, very good compared to the States.
I would say it's, you know, whenever we get a buyer that's coming in from the mainland, and then they ask, well, how are your taxes here? And then when we start to tell them, they're just amazed at the values. They're saying, this is the best tax assessment that they've seen compared to stateside values.
If people haven't received this paperwork yet in the mail, when can they generally expect to do so? Because I know a lot of people are just targeting April 15th. They're like, I may have, you know, like a big bill already, and now you're telling me 5 days later I got to pay something else.
Right. I recommend that they go to Revenue Tax and try to get the billing, because just because you didn't get it doesn't mean you're not liable for it.
Right.
You still want to make sure you pay your taxes, otherwise there'll be some penalties imposed.
Do you have any idea what the penalties would be, like how much? Or
I'm not quite sure what those penalties would be.
maybe
but
150, 200 bucks.
I mean,
maybe?
it's still, but over time, of course,
Yeah.
it would go up.
Or do you think, I mean, just speculative, might it be a percentage of the amount
I
you owe?
would say, yeah, I would say it's
Okay.
a percentage, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything else people should know, like, about this as we head into tax
No,
season?
but for some people, they may get a lot of pieces of paper because they have a number of pieces of property, but I would recommend that they really scrutinize the documentation to make sure that everything is in order. What we're finding also is sometimes if you have a parcel and there's a road in front, the government may have taken a sliver of that to expand the road, and in some cases, their lot number changes. I know that happened with me with my mom's lot in Jigo, where the government cut it up to allow for a wider road, and then what it did was reduce the size of the main lot. So from 2,000 square meters, it reverted down to 1,600 square meters. So it would behoove them to really scrutinize the sheet just to see.
And then again, how about, like, last week you were talking about infrastructural changes that you might make? Because, again, that kind of thing doesn't show up on a Google Earth satellite image.
That's right.
If 7 years prior you actually paid GWA to actually run
Right.
piping and water lines underneath, that stuff's never going to show up. But that certainly would
Well,
affect the value of your property.
the value would be dependent, of course, yes, on the infrastructure that's in place. It might not affect the value, the land value, if it's just land, but it certainly enhances it if you're trying to sell it or develop it, because that's what people would look at. The values would be based on the infrastructure in place.
Okay, and last question before we go to our commercial break, because we do have to let our sponsors get their word in. If a lot of people are embracing solar technology and doing the whole photovoltaics thing, which is a very, very smart thing to do and a really good investment, how does that affect real estate properties, specifically for residential?
I think for an individual, if you put in solar capacity or some improvement, there are federal grants that are given, credits that are given. I'm not familiar with all of them, but I do know that some of the solar companies have said you could get a federal grant and some tax credits for putting in solar panels, for putting in solar windows, for putting in, your refrigeration if it's if it's one of these things that help
The various
the
technologies.
various technology. Yes, there's so many of them out there right now, but there are advantages to doing that, and some people take advantage of it by applying for those credits.
And in the states, like the state utilities will actually buy back the unused power to help themselves.
Yeah, I think there's some limitations on what they buy back. So yeah, you double check before you buy anything. You don't want to buy something with the thought that you'll get a credit on your power, and then you find out it didn't happen that way.
Absolutely. Well, Liz, thanks so much. We'll hopefully, if I may borrow this, if you have not received one of these yet and you are expecting to, like Liz said, go to Rev & Tax and make sure you get one of these, it would behoove you to do so. She is the lady with all the information, and information is power, ladies and gentlemen. Please stay tuned. We're back after this.